Your Holiness, on behalf of all Buddhists of Russia, I would like to wish you a very good morning. Today marks the 13th year since the teachings for Russian Buddhists began. We have been so fortunate to be with you for many years in Dharamsala, New Delhi, and Riga, Latvia. We truly miss those moments, and we will always cherish them. We all impatiently look forward to being in your presence again. This is the second year that we're meeting online for the teachings. On behalf of our co-organizers, I would like to welcome everyone to today's event. A few years back, we consulted with Your Holiness by asking which books on Buddhist philosophy and practice we should translate into Russian for everyone's benefit. Your Holiness recommended a list of important Buddhist texts. We were able to complete translating several books since then, and it is my honor to humbly inform Your Holiness that a few months back, we completed the translation of and publishing the following texts by Maitreya. In Sanskrit, Mahayana Sutra Alankara; in English, the Ornament of the Great Vehicle Sutras; in Tibetan, Dodegen. Second, in Sanskrit, Dharma Dharmara Vibhanga; in English, distinguishing between phenomena and pure being; in Tibetan, Chodachunye number 2. Third, in Sanskrit, Madhyayanta Vibhanga; in English, discourse on discrimination between middle and extremes; in Tibetan, Udanamye. The texts were translated by Algirdas Gugievicius, edited by Andrei Terentiev, and published by Save Tibet Foundation, Moscow. We are thanking everyone who generously provided support to this important project. It is a big honor and blessing for us that today Your Holiness will be bestowing us the teachings on Mahayana Sutra Alankara, the Ornament of Great Vehicle Sutras, Dodegen. Your precious teachings will definitely help Russian Buddhists to understand and depth of this text, as well as the Bodhisattva path, to which its main subject. With prostrations and offerings of the mandala on behalf of all Buddhists of Russia, I wish Your Holiness a long life and good health. Today, we begin the teachings with the recitation of the Heart Sutra in Tuva language, led by the head of the Buddhists of Tuva, Khenpo Lama Natsik Dorju. The recitation will be done in the main temple of Tuva, Kure Tsechenling. It will be followed by the Heart Sutra in Buryat language, led by Yilo Rinpoche. It will be recited in Rinpoche Baksha Monastery in Ulan-Ude, Buryatia. Thank you, Your Holiness.
투시체
인디 달라 바가바디 브라냐 바라미다 기리다 대비 달라 준데 네마 셰라비 바로 드치비 녀모 다와다다 어더 예예 메르게 노감 바라미다 전능 줄리 줄리 Hıbılıgı sağdaki zartı kurhan oldu Ilkıgı kılır Agavadı prajna paramita hridaya Tubude kılır Ramdan dema Şeravcı paraldu Çimbi nimbo Mongole kılır Ilıcı tuvus nukşıhın Hıbılıgı sağdaki zartı kurhan oldu Medo damare ravlince nide Jambadi zanje jendo mede bulavai Do namda jela jovara jo Gare ravien goravi shimkam su bande Deva male jomine jare deva dinden rantoye Javaze barado anjoroje idam guru ratnamandava kamnirya dayami
So today, so with regard to the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha has prophesied that my teaching will spread from north to north. So there is such a saying. And so the Buddha Dharma spread in India, in the monastic institution of Nalanda and so forth. And then from India, it spread to Tibet, and from Tibet, it spread to the Mongolian regions, Buryatia and so forth, the ethnic Mongolians also. So we understand this prophecy to mean that the teaching will spread from India to its north, Tibet, and from there to its north, which is the Mongolian regions. And so, in any case, the Buddha Dharma, and particularly the Nalanda tradition, this pure tradition of the Nalanda, which can be explained not merely on the basis of faith, but through reason and logic, through investigation into the teaching of the Buddha, following the teachings of Master Nagarjuna and his disciples, and also Master Asanga and his followers, but particularly the following Master Nagarjuna's lineage. So the writings, in order to understand them, we need to study logic and epistemology. So in Tibet, we have the study of Vinaya and Abhidharma, of course, but the important texts that we study are Pramana Vartika Kareka by Master Dharmakirti, and then there of the Tatu Samgraha thing. So in other words, Tibetans have this very good tradition of studying Pramana texts on logic and epistemology. So when I was young, most of the Gomang Geshis were from Mongolian regions. And then in Sera also there were few, and also in Gaden Changse there were few Mongolian students and Geshis. And so the great monastic, the Geshis were Mongolians. And then regarding myself personally, one of the assistants in debate was Ngodup Tsogye, who taught me the procedure of debate. And he was said to, I heard that he was from Abak region of Mongolia. And so, in other words, the Geshis, as I said, particularly in the Gomang, and particularly in Gomang monastery of Jepung, we could almost say that if there were any Geshis at that time, they were necessarily Mongolians. And so Buddhism, which spread in Tibet widely, had declined at some point, but the Mongolian scholars came to Tibet, and then Buddhism again flourished in Tibet through the preservation and promotion of the Dharma. And so today we have Mongolians and ethnic Mongolian students in our monastic institutions here in India. In Gomang Monastery, for example, we have quite a number of Mongolians and ethnic Mongolian people, students. So generally speaking, the teaching of the Buddha, and particularly that of the Nalanda tradition that we have in the past, Tibetan Buddhist tradition was named Lamaism, but over the last many years, people have understood that this Tibetan Buddhist tradition has the tradition of studying logic and epistemology and reason, and therefore it is today recognized as being a glorious Nalanda tradition, belonging to the glorious Nalanda tradition. And the Sri Lanka, Burma, and Thailand, of course, have the Theravada tradition. They have very good practice of Vinaya, the monastic code of discipline. But with regards to logic and also the Madhyamaka studies, there are only Tibetans and Mongolians who are the custodians of this study of these disciplines. So we have considered it very important to study the great treatises, the Buddhist literature, and therefore we have re-established the monastic institutions where there are these studies of the great treatises in India after coming into exile. And so today, I have this opportunity to give teaching to the Russian Buddhists. I'm very honored. So we have ethnic Mongolians and Russian students in our monastic institutions pursuing their studies. So when I was once in Mongolia, I had a talk with the abbot of the Khenpo Lama, I think, of Mongolia. So when I first visited Mongolia, after they recited and chanted the mandala offering verses, and at that time I felt very sad as well and had tears. And today it seems that we have there is sign that the Buddhism will flourish again in your regions. So there was at that time, the Buddhism has been crushed by the red communism. And at that time, I had a talk with the Mongolian Khenpo Lama and told him that it's very important to do study of Buddhism, not just doing chantings of prayers. So the teaching today would be on the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, ornament of the great vehicle Sutras. And so as you requested, the Russian Buddhists. So there are 5 treatises. Maitreya, And of these, Visamaya Lamkara, ornament of the clear realization, and ornament of great vehicle sutras are the more important texts. So I have memorized Abhisamaya Lamkara when I was very small, and I would recite whatever I had memorized on the day in front of my tutor, Yongzhen Ling Rinpoche. And at that time, of course, I didn't understand the meaning. But later, as I studied these texts, the Abhisamaya Lamkara by Maitreya and Madhyamaka Avatara by Chandra Kirti, I found them incredibly great texts. And so regarding Abhisamaya Lamkara, it actually explicates the progression along the path to Buddhahood that are taught in the Perfection of Wisdom teachings. And then Madhyamaka Avatara, to understand the emptiness taught in the sutras, Perfection of Wisdom sutras. And so over the last many years, I have had discussions and dialogues with the scientists. And when we discussed about mind and emotions, many of the scientists really appreciated the knowledge that we have about mind and emotions, that we studied from the Prajnaparamita studies, during the study of Prajnaparamita text. So the scientists appreciate our knowledge about psychology, and today Tibetan Buddhism has gained some name and honor amongst the Buddhist, among the Western modern scientists. It's not because of the charm or the ritual dance where people wear different masks and so forth and chantings, but because of the study that we have of Buddhist tradition, which are the studying the classic texts through logic and reason. Within the teaching of the Buddha itself, we find those that are interpretable, and those which are provisional teachings. As the Buddha himself has said, O monks and scholars, just as gold is tested by rubbing, cutting, and burning, likewise you should examine my teaching and then accept it, not because you have faith or devotion in me. And so the Nalanda tradition has this investigation into the teaching as the mainstay of the tradition. So the republics within the Russian Federation, like Buryatia, Kalmykia, and Tuva. So you follow the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. You studied it. So in Tibet itself, of course, in the past, it was said that the Tibetan Buddhist tradition is merely blind faith. But today, in many Western scholars, and including scientists, have come to understand that because of their following the tradition of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, this idea of Tibetan Buddhism being based on blind faith has more or less subsided. And so the Buddhists of Russia in the Russian republics, and also the Mongolian people, So you should also keep up with the study of Buddhism, which we can actually boast to the world. So the Tibetans and the Mongolians and ethnic Mongolian people in the Russian Federation can actually make this possible. So whether you are Buddhist or not, whether you are or not, studying and taking in, there is a newfound interest in the study of logic and epistemology. So we should pay attention to that. In Tibet, Chaba Chögyö Sengye and his disciples were said to have initiated the tradition of debate in Tibet, where we use logic, such as the reductio ad absurdum logic, and that also has spread in Mongolia as well in the past. And so, when I sat for examination, of Geshe examination, I had to sit to answer the questions from the monastics the monks in the Seragat and Debung monasteries. And at that time, there were some of the debaters were Mongolians, and I had some difficulty understanding their pronunciation. And Yongzen Ling Rinpoche was also there, and I remember that he also had difficulty understanding their pronunciation. The Mongolian scholars, of course, there had been many of them in the past. And at the Mönlam festival, in the evening, the debate was usually done on the Abhidhamma and Vinaya, and almost all the debaters were Mongolians. They stood in line to so of course we Tibetans as well as you, the Mongolian and the ethnic Mongolians, the Russian republics had great difficulty in the meantime. But it is now the time for us to preserve our traditional religion. So because of that, I would like to request you to work hard in the preservation and promotion of this Buddhist tradition that we have. Of course, we cannot finish the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, but we will just begin the teaching today. It is usually said that with regard to the perfection of wisdom sutras, the great extensive path system that are taught in there, so the first 6 chapters are said to summarize or show the essence of these teachings in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. So I received the teaching, the transmission of this text from Genrinzin Tempa of Kinur. I received the teachings on transmission on the 13 different texts from him, and so this included this Mahayana Sutra Alamkara. So in the Indian language, it is the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, Karika. When the texts were translated from India into Tibetan language, Indian language into Tibetan, there is this tradition of giving the title in Indian language, in Sanskrit here, as decreed by the Tibetan emperors at that time. And then the Tibetan title, and then the homage to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the translators. He who knows the meaning created a composition showing that meaning with flawless speech and phrasing, out of natural compassion for suffering beings in order to free them from suffering. For beings who follow the way expounded in the Supreme Vehicle, he revealed the nature of the 5 unexcelled metaphors. Number 2, the crafting of a piece of gold, the blossoming of a lotus, eating well-cooked food when starving, hearing good news, and opening a chest of jewels. These illustrate the sublime delights the teachings set forth here will bring. When those of natural and ornamented beauty behold themselves reflected in a glass, in a mirror, it brings them consummate delight. So too, when the meaning of the Dharma, whose excellent words are always naturally full of virtues, is clarified, it brings the wise the greatest joy. Like medicine that smells foul, yet tastes quite sweet. Know the Dharma also has these 2 aspects, the meaning and the words. This difficult Dharma, extensive and profound, is like a monarch. So these 2 aspects, the extensive and the profound teachings that are taught with great effort, so we should understand them. We should learn them through study. Is like a monarch, difficult to please. Yet, if pleased, it likewise will bestow the richest of sublime qualities. So it is very important, as I said earlier, for us to pursue the study of Buddhism. When I was little, I memorized the Abhisamaya Alamkara and Madhyamaka Avatara, and then, of course, at that time, I didn't understand the meaning of these texts, but then as I started studying and I understood the meaning, it gave me great joy. And today, when I read these texts, whenever I have the time, and also I feel great, very good to understand the meaning of these texts. And then personally, for my practice, as it is said, this is Madhyamaka Avatara, chapter. The 3 last verses of Madhyamaka Avatara, 6th chapter. Verses 224, 225, and 226 of chapter 6. The verse 224 says, thus illuminated by the rays of wisdom's light, and so forth. And then verse 226 ends with, to the excellent far shore, the oceanic qualities of the conquerors. And then as the verses number 34, 35, 36 teach, I read them and also they study these verses based on the commentaries written by Master Tsongkhapa and so forth, and particularly the that of the auto commentary by Chandrakirti himself. So verse 5 then, and then the purest, priceless jewel will not delight the eyes of those who cannot see its worth. So this is really true. If people do not know how to check do not have the skill to check the quality, they will not appreciate it. And similarly, it is the case with the Dharma. This Dharma is the same for those who lack discernment, for those who are the opposites. Each will bring commensurate delight. Chapter 1 done, and then chapter 2. So verse number 1, the great vehicle is shown to be the Buddha's words. Because nothing adverse was predicted, it appeared at the same time, and so forth. And so it is very important for us to study the text, the Dharma, and not just leave it aside by saying, oh, this is very difficult for me to understand. It is beyond the scope of intellectuals. It can be proven. Its existence and non-existence depends on there being another vehicle. It is the antidote, and its words mean something different. So, question and answer session.
Thank you very much for your precious teachings. Today we have questions for you from different regions of Russia. And the first question is from Kure Sechenling, the main Buddhist temple of Tuva. It will be asked by Chambal Mongush.
Здравствуйте, Ваше Святейшество.
Good morning. Your Holiness, the Buddha said that monastic community, the Sangha, is necessary requirement for the existence of the Buddhist teaching. My question is, what the Sangha members on the one side, and what is the Sangha member and the lay people on the other side should do to promote the development of Sangha in the modern world, and how to increase the number of monks in the Buddhist regions? So in Tibet, there were some monasteries where there were very few monks, and then at that time, these monasteries would have more monks by some kind of obligation to admit, but that was an old-fashioned. So when we are at a time where people would appreciate the Dharma through understanding it, and then if so in our monastic institutions in South India, the number of monks is not decreasing, but in Tibet, inside Tibet, although there are restrictions, in remote areas, so there were people who become monks and then study the great treatises of Abhidharma, Vinaya, and the Panchaparamita studies, and Madhyamaka studies, and also Brahmana. So in order to be able to do these studies well, people join monastic institutions. So of course, Buddhism is not about just faith, but it's people are gaining more and more understanding that we need to study the Dharma. And so the monastic institutions of learning should continue to study these texts, and this creates a circumstance for more people to join the monastic institutions. So, of course, on the basis of practicing the Vinaya, the three different practices of bi-monthly confession and so forth, When you have these practices done well, and then have the study of the Buddhist philosophy through logic and epistemology, you should be able to serve the community that you live in also through these knowledge. So in today's world, Buddhism and particularly the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which has a very good study of mind and emotions and also epistemology and logic, people are finding them to be incredible, these to be incredible traditions, and therefore they take interest in it. And so it is very important for us to study the Buddhist tradition that we have through logic and debate. Next, please.
Your Holiness, the second question is from Buryatia, from the Rinpoche Baksha Datsan, led by Venerable Yellow Rinpoche. The question will be asked by Grigory Karmayev.
Good morning, Your Holiness. Louder. Why karma is not being influenced by the subtle aspect of impermanence? The cause of its creation is not the cause of its destruction. Instead, karma is becoming stronger and bigger with the passage of time. Are there other phenomena which are not influenced by subtle impermanence? So the question shows that the person is not knowledgeable about our treatises. So to be blunt, it's a foolish question. So with regard to the karma, the proliferation of karma that you have created. So with regard to the karma in general, it is said that if you have not created a karma, you will not also experience the consequence. And the karma that is created will give rise to its effect. And then the karma also proliferates. So the good karma, of course, once you have created it and you keep up with the practice, then it will increase in its strength. So I also have the experience of such thing. Because with regard to bodhicitta, for example, in the beginning I felt, it's really nice thing. But today, every morning, as soon as I wake up, I pray. I recite these verses for generating bodhicitta, and then I have a Buddha statue in front of me, and I recite these lines from Master Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, where I imagine that I am repeating after the Buddha himself these verses. Whatever joy there is in the world will come from wishing others to be happy. Whatever suffering there is in the world, they all come from wishing oneself only to be happy. What need is there to say more? Look at the difference between the Buddhas who serve others and the childish sentient beings who only think of for themselves. So, of course, these good qualities, such as bodhicitta and so forth, can increase as you do more analysis and investigation into it, its nature and so forth. You'll have greater understanding of it, and this and also gives more peace in your mind. And then regarding emptiness, the more you delve into its nature, the more you gain insight into the true nature of things, and that gives you conviction about the teaching itself on emptiness. As I quoted Master Chandrakirti's verses, the verse 224 in the 6th chapter, you will see how understanding emptiness can lead you to that of the true cessation. And the more you check them and study them, it really gives you more understanding and deeper knowledge and conviction. Whereas other things, the negative emotions and so forth, will decrease as you do not have any good ground. So the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism that we follow is not at all a blind faith, but the more you delve into it, the greater your conviction. So that's true. Next. Oh, with regard to impermanence, things are impermanent because of being, because they disintegrate moment by moment, but their continuity still remains. But though the mind changes moment by moment, you could also develop your experience of the Dharma, greater and greater experience of the Dharma. And so, the Buddhist, the Mahayana path of accumulation and path of preparation. So I have some kind of a confidence or that I may reach the Mahayana path of preparation. And then from there, to reach the path of seeing, go through the path of meditation, and to reach that of the Buddhahood. So it seems like it's everything is. I can see them in my palm. Next, please.
Holiness. Our next question is from Galina Kubareva, board member of the Save Tibet Foundation.
Ваше Святейшество, вы неоднократно говорили, что ваши ученики...
Your Holiness, you recently mentioned that your disciples should practice all-encompassing yoga. Could you please give us more details on how to perform this practice? Should we recite the mantra after visualizing the moon disk and the vajra standing on top of it, which symbolize bodhicitta and understanding of emptiness? How should we dissolve this visualization at the end of the session? So with regard to this all-encompassing yoga, I will do it now for you and also tomorrow as well. So this constitutes both the extensive path as well as the profound path.
말해 가서 대달로도 세계 나와 세전 랑글은 내가 스스로도 뭘 되는 게만 또 하냐 대표도 좀 고건조
Verses from Madhyamaka Avatara, verse 224, 225, and 226. So through these verses, we could generate that of the all-encompassing yoga mind. First, reflect on bodhicitta. So our self-cherishing attitude is rooted in our afflictive emotions. And afflictive emotions, all of them are rooted in our ignorance, that is grasping at some true, absolute existence in things and beings. And so, self-cherishing attitude is very narrow-minded, short-sighted. But we, as human beings who have this marvelous intelligence, we should think of all sentient beings have this broad perspective with the aim of reaching Buddhahood, which is qualified by both the Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. And so that we reach this goal, we should have both the wings of conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta, and reach through these, fly across the space and reach the further shore of Buddhahood. So when you reflect on these on a daily basis, you will have the confidence and the inner strength and courage to work for others. So as I said before, having both the wings of conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta, when you actually reflect on these seriously over and over again, you will actually have a confidence or a feeling that it is possible for me to reach that goal of Buddhahood. And so this comes through familiarization of these principles within yourself. And so with regard to this, the all-encompassing yoga mind, I usually encompass... I urge and encourage others to do this. So Yangde Rinpoche was clarifying the question whether we need to recite the mantra after having visualized the moon disk and the vajra. So it's not necessary that we should recite it. So of course, it is good to recite the mantra, but it doesn't really have that much impetus. So when you are able to reflect on the meaning of this all-encompassing yoga mind, well, then it would also make sense to say the mantra as well. So there's no need to also go through the visualization of dissolution of the dissolution process. I think it is related with the Tantra. As you go through the dissolution process of the elements, and then when you reach the stage called the clear light at the time of death, which is taught in the Tantras, so His Holiness is looking for the verse that he usually recites. So there is some words. So of course I also do recite, visualize the moon disk and the vajra, the mind. So which symbolize the bodhicitta, the moon disk symbolizing the bodhicitta at the heart, and then I think about emptiness and visualize this vajra on top of standing on top of the moon disk. And so these two, the moon and the vajra minds, I reflect on. Oh, so now I remembered. So this verse, I pay homage to the mother of all the Buddhas of the three times, which is the perfection of wisdom, which is without, which is inexpressible, inconceivable. So the dualistic the emptiness, which is free of any dualistic appearance, is something which cannot be expressed. When you have the experience of it, it cannot be expressed, that experience. And it is something beyond our concepts. And also in the Heart Sutra it is said, form is empty, emptiness is form, and emptiness is not other than form, and form too is not other than emptiness. The fourfold emptiness, as it's usually called. And so this perfection of wisdom is something which has to be understood by one's own self-awareness. So this can be explained in connection with Tantra. And to do that, you need to think about the difference between the adventitious minds and the innate clear light. So, with regard to the Rangtong, empty of its own being, and then there is the understanding of Shentong, the emptiness of the other, which could be understood on the basis of understanding how the basic nature of the mind, the clear light mind, is devoid of all the adventitious states of mind and emotions. So, whatever suffering there is in the world, as I recited earlier, they all come from selfish attitudes, and whatever joy and happiness there is in the world all come from wishing others to be happy. What need is there to say more? Look at the difference between the Buddhas who think of others and the childish beings who think of themselves. And then think about these lines which says, which sensible person would feel discouraged to ride the horse of bodhicitta, which leads one from one blissful state to another blissful state. And Shantideva the tradition that has come down to us from Shantideva down is also called Nyamnen Chilabgyu, the blessing lineage of practice. And so, it, of course, again, so all of us want happiness and do not want suffering. There's no need to reason these out. And so what happens to us is because of our selfish attitude, extreme self-centeredness, we have problems. And when you think about others, and as Shantideva also says, unless you switch your happiness and joy with the suffering of others, leave alone reaching Buddhahood. Even in samsara, you will not have happiness. And so today, as we have found this human body, human life, and have met with the teaching, which has the complete practice of both the extensive and the profound practices, so we need to make ourselves worthy of having met with this teaching. So, of course, it is 100% sure that nobody, no human being wants suffering, but everyone wants happiness. But because of us, because we let ourselves be carried away by selfish attitude, self-cherishing attitude, we cause suffering to others as well. Whereas if you if you cherish others over oneself, you will always restrain harming others. So I usually tell people around the world that we as human beings are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So as Buddhists, we usually say that all sentient beings are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And so just have this wish for all sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. So please reflect on that, and then so as we do not want suffering but want happiness, but because of our self-cherishing attitude, we are ignorant about the ways to create happiness, which is to say, this self-cherishing attitude comes as the root. And then, on the other hand, there is this sense of an I, which we cherish or which is considered very precious. We consider my body, my this and that to be precious, because we consider ourselves to be precious. So though we say my mind, my speech, my body, but where is that I? As Madhyamaka says, so if you actually search for the identity of this person, the self or an I, nothing can be found. But that doesn't mean that the I does not exist. But it exists, though it exists. How does it exist? It exists as something which is designated. As Ratnavali says, a person is not the earth, fire, wind, and so forth, the six down to the consciousness. If it is not all of these, what else is a person? And then Master Nagarjuna answers that a person is the composite designated on the basis of these 6 elements. And the elements too cannot be found when you search for the identity. And so we do say that my friend, my this and that, but where is that person? Where are you? Your brain is not you, your heart is not you. If you try to pinpoint and try to find out where this I is, of course, you cannot find it anywhere. So when you reflect in this way, you will come to understand that this I, this person, exists by way of mere designation. Even in quantum physics, they say that though things do appear to have some objective existence, so when you search for the identity of an I, the person, and you cannot find anything that that can be said to be that I, what you come to understand at the end is that this I is merely designated. Though it is merely designated, to our mind, it appears as if it has some objective, independent existence. And similarly, accordingly, we also cling on to such an existence of an absolute I. but think that I do not exist independently, apart from being designated. So you see me, the Dalai Lama, and you hear my voice, but if you try to find my identity, the Dalai Lama, you will not find anything as being me. And similarly, it is the case with you. You appear to me, but you do not exist. Apart from being designated by my conceptual mind. So just think that I does not exist apart from being designated, that there is no independent objective existence. So meditate on that emptiness of I for a while.
오야. 다 된저기 안다 동니 사무 당셔버디 대기 이게 꾸수 전주고선 다에
So the bodhicitta that you have generated earlier transforms into a moon disk at your heart, and this insight into emptiness transforms into a vajra standing on that moon disk. So the white moon disk symbolizes the bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta, and the vajra symbolizing ultimate bodhicitta. So these really are helpful to me. And so, my Dharma friends, you should also, if you could reflect on these two bodhicittas, it will definitely be beneficial to you. And particularly you, the people in the Russian republics, the Buddhists. So to understand bodhicitta, it is very important to study Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, and in order to have a good understanding of emptiness, it's very important to study Madhyamaka Avatara. So, my Dharma friends, you should also keep this in mind, please keep this in mind, and not just get carried away by chantings and prayers alone, but consider these two principles important, very important, and generating this the all-encompassing yoga mind. With regard to dissolution process, it is to do with the Tantra practice. So as the verse which praises perfection of wisdom, the mother of all the Buddhas of the three times, it is said that this mother of perfection of wisdom, the perfection of wisdom is the domain of self-aware wisdom. So with regard to this phrase, self-aware wisdom, when you think about emptiness itself, you can understand it in terms of rangtong, emptiness of its own being. And then, when you think about the dissolution process of the elements, the basic nature of the mind being devoid of adventitious afflictions and so forth, can be understood in terms of shentong, the emptiness of the other. And so please think about the all-encompassing yoga mind on a daily basis, my Dharma friends. Please, next.
Your Holiness, the next question is by Yulia Boltinkova, administrator of Tergar Buddhist Center, Moscow.
Ваше Святейшество, В момент смерти наш
When
концептуальный
we are
ум
dying,
растворяется,
our
и
conceptual mind
природа
is
ума
dissolving,
предстает
and
перед
when we are
нами.
able to see,
Считается, что
and
в
we are
этот
able to
момент
see the nature of
состояние ума
mind, the
всегда
text mentioned
нейтральное.
that this state of mind
Почему
is
же
always
тогда любовь и
neutral. My
сострадание
question is,
часть
if
нашей
it
благой
is the
природы?
case, why love and compassion are part of our nature? Why are the nature of mind considered to be positive and not neutral?
주요한다.
Why is the nature of mind not
장보다
positive
인지사로.
but neutral? So, of course, when we talk about love and compassion, they come under the category of usually the grosser states of mind. But when the 80 conceptions dissolve, of course, before going through this dissolution process, if you have a good understanding of love, compassion, and emptiness, and then, as I mentioned about the Shentong, the emptiness of the other, so the mind not being affected by any other states, then you go through the dissolution of these 80 conceptions, as they're called, the 33 related with the luminous increase, and the 40 with the with luminous appearance, luminous increase, 40, and then 7 black near attainment. So, of course, we should gain familiarity with these processes of dissolution. And so once all these, the three visions of luminous appearance, luminous increase, and luminous black near attainment have ceased, then all the gross states of mind have ceased at that point. And then you are reached that of the innate clear light or luminous state of the mind, the basic nature of the mind. And so the teachings of impermanence, suffering, selflessness, and empty nature taught in the first sermon, and then the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, teaching that of emptiness, which is called the object limit clear light, and then in the third turning of the wheel, there is teaching on the luminous mind. So it is not easy, but you need to combine these two: what is taught in the second turning and the third turning of the wheel of dharmas. So at the end of course, as you keep up with your practice, as you go through the dissolution process of these 80 conceptions and so forth, you should be able to remind yourself of emptiness as well as the luminous mind itself becomes more and more manifest through this dissolution of the 80 conceptions. You should also be able to think about emptiness as much as you can. Next.
Your Holiness, we have two more questions. The next question will be asked by Venerable Lobsang Tenpa, the coordinator of the Foundation for Contemplative Studies, Moscow.
Ваше Святейшество, последователи палийской традиции уделяют...
Your Holiness, followers of the Noble Pali tradition spend a lot of time and effort meditating on the 4 applications of mindfulness of body, spirit, and so forth. You talk about these practices a lot in the Library of Wisdom and Compassion book series. Our question is this: how to contemplate the body, feeling, mind phenomena in the context of Madhyamaka view. So with regard to these 4 mindfulnesses, the 4 exertions, and the 4 power, the 5 faculties and 5 powers and so forth. These are all common to both the traditions of Buddhism, the Pali and the Sanskrit. So first we need to reflect on how things are impermanent. That body, for example, is impermanent because it comes through our delusions and karma. Therefore, it's impermanent. And through meditation, one comes to understand or develop the placement of mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling, mind, and phenomena. So we use our five sensory perceptions, and we think about the external objects, the form, sound, and so forth, and we should withdraw our mind from getting distracted to the external things and withdraw it within, and then think of placing your mindfulness on the body, and then go on to feeling, and then the mind, and the phenomena. So these needs to be developed, and accordingly we need to develop the four exertions and the miraculous feat and so forth. So when you think of on a daily basis about emptiness, you will be able to develop this understanding of the mindfulness of the body and also feeling and mind. So So if you do not just let your mind, distract it outside, but bring it within yourself, withdraw it, you will be able to experience these four placement of mindfulnesses. Establishment of mindfulness is same. There's not much difference in between the Pali and the Sanskrit traditions. Next, please.
Your Holiness, this question is from the Association of Buddhist Communities, Arya Sangha. It will be asked by its president, Alexander Bugaev.
Good morning. Your Holiness, why aspirational prayers are so important in Buddhism, and how one moves from bodhicitta of aspiration to bodhicitta of application in order to change our world for the better. Thank you. So, of course, the prayers that we say actually have to do with their meaning, which are good. The content or the meaning of these prayers are good ones. And so these lines that we recite remind us of their content. So before saying the prayers, if you can reflect on their meaning, well, these prayers will help you to remind you of the different subject matters. So without having anything to do, without being able to understand the meaning, I mean, it would be just like a parroting. In Nobulenka, I used to have a parrot. That parrot would also recite Om Mani Padme Hum, this mantra. So he doesn't really understand the meaning. What we need to do is reflect on the meaning of the Dharma through the process of study, and then gain the understanding based on that, and then also develop the understanding based on reflection. And so the main thing is for us to understand is to have something to reflect on regarding the meaning of the prayers, without which, if you just recite the words, of course it may have some good benefit of reciting the words, which are good. So when I was a young kid, Khenpo Thamba has used to give nuts and then recite the Om Mani Padme Hum to the parrot, which the parrot would repeat. So, of course, the parrot does not have anything to think about the meaning of the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, but we need to think about the meaning, reflect on the meaning, and then recite the mantras or prayers. Otherwise, if you are thinking of only how to make money and how to deceive someone while saying some prayers, it doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't make any sense. Okay,
Your
next.
Holiness, this was our last question for today. And we are all looking forward to the second day of your teachings tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 투지씨, 다 속을 쳐줘서, 아니, 쪽으로 교회, 다 쳐줘, 가만히야.
So the Russian
투지씨, 셀슈기,
the main audience of this teaching, I would like to also express to the rest of the audience to do your best, to the best of your ability, reflect on the all-encompassing Guru Yoga mind. That's all, and let's see you tomorrow as well.